That if you don't have $20,000 saved up, you are broke. Well, and I mean, if we're being completely honest, most people don't even have $1,000 saved up. So I feel like people are out here low-key touching more money than they're saving. Yeah, I think that if the average person would sit down and write out their finances and really look at the bank statements, write down transaction for transaction on how much money is going out, I really think a lot of people would be surprised that they are touching more money than they, one, feel like they have, and then two, that they're able to save. Here's what I am gonna say. There's no way in this economy that a lot of people have that advantage to be able to save $20,000. Most people can't even save up $5,000 for the simple fact that, truth be told, they don't touch enough money. That's why they say as the years go on, you gotta get your coins up. You gotta invest in things. You gotta have side hustles. You literally have to have great, like, I'm talking about some hefty hitter side hustles. People will focus over time on decreasing expenses while increasing income. I think a lot of people would be able to save more money. Be honest, if you had $20,000 saved up right now, what would you do? If you touched $20,000 right now, if somebody were to give you $20,000 right now, what would you do? What things would you change about your financial situation? What would you do moving forward if you had a little bit more left?
Most people that I know, and I've actually seen this happen in real life. Like I've seen people hit a jackpot at a casino. I've seen people, touch money based off of a lot of different things that didn't happen in their life, right? I've seen people catch a windfall because somebody got a significant amount of money, and so they then distributed it to their loved ones and stuff like that. As far as like making sure that everybody was straight because they, made a lot of money in a play or a business investment and stuff like that. And I've seen people go out and buy new cars immediately, and they still got a bunch of debt, and they still got a mortgage, and they still got credit cards. I've seen people go out and take trips. Real talk, just take trips. I've seen people that I'm not close to, but I know of. As soon as they touch some money, whether they get a new contract or they get a bonus, I know some people that have gotten significant, not six figure, 5 figure um, profit sharing checks from the plant. I've seen them go out and buy a chain. I've seen people do a lot of dumb stuff. And she is right. I think that there's a lot of people that are touching more money than they realize, but then they get death by a thousand cuts. They get nickel and dime to death. They eat out every single day. They make bad decisions. They make the wrong decisions, and they can afford more than they realize. And so I think the thing that changed my life, and I know the exact moment of when it changed my life, is when I got back on my feet because I went broke in 2008. And prior to 2008, I was very knowledgeable. My work study job was in the library. I spent the majority of my time reading books, financial literacy, studying Warren Buffett, a random walk down Wall Street, all of that stuff, right? And so I remember when, after 2008, when I started getting back on my feet and I created a company, and then I did really, really well in my business. And so I was still working two full time jobs. I was I had finally, started making some transition in software engineering, and everything was going really, really well, right? And I was headed to the dealership, and I this is no lie, no cap. I was headed to the dealership, and I was in the finance guy's office, and I was about to finance a car, and it was like some stuff that was on the desk, and it basically was like a check for a full, like for the entire amount of the car. And I had never seen no junk like that before. Like I had never seen in my life personally anybody buy a car outright and just pay the entire car off. And I think it was like somebody's, and I asked him, I said, yo, do people actually just buy straight up? And he was like, yeah, guy came in and wrote a check for his kid and just purchased a car and just walked right out. And that was like a come to Jesus moment for me. And I walked out of the dealership and I didn't even purchase anything because I said, you know what, I need to stay down. I need to refocus. I need to not increase my lifestyle. I need to make sure that I'm doing the things that's in the best interest of my future. And so what I decided to do, even though I was making a decent amount of money and I started making some really good investments, and I had got into real estate, and I had a really nice amount of money saved because I had moved back into my parents' basement and I wasn't in a rush to move out. Um, Even when I had the opportunity and I found some really good deals, and even I was purchasing real estate, but I was just renting it out. I wasn't actually going and living it myself. And so I realized then that my life was not any different. Like I wasn't any happier by financing a car or putting myself in the same position prior to 2008 when I wound up going broke. And she's right. There are a lot of people. Now, of course, I know that there are people because I lived it, right? I've been poor. I raised in the hood, raised in the inner city of Detroit. There are a lot of people that got to figure it out, right? They got to make some better life decisions. They got to get a job and all of that stuff. And poor people will always be amongst us. That's just biblical with scripture. But the other side of it is I've seen people make $100,000 a year and then they increase their lifestyle up to that. And then they sit there and say, oh man, it's the economy. We can't afford nothing. No, you don't want to stay down. You believe that the minute that you touch some money that you had to move out, you had to go do what you got to do. You got to get a new car to reflect it and all of that stuff and you got to get out and see the world. I realize that there's people in New York that make $100,000 that won't buy a car because the environment is not conducive to a car and it doesn't make any sense. You'll be spending a whole lot of money as a result of it. I know people that can't wait to trade the car that they bought in, and as soon as it's paid off, they feel like they got to trade it in and go get another car note, or they underwater in a car note, and instead of just paying it off, they'll roll it into a new car and they just focus on their payment. When people go and finance houses, they focus on the payment of the house and whether or not they can afford it based off of the payment instead of, how much the purchase price and the total amount, the maintenance, the property taxes, and all of this stuff. And so people touch a lot of money. I've done a lot of coaching sessions where I went through and people like, man, I don't know why I can't afford nothing. And then we just start breaking it down and we pull out the bank statements and I actually have them keep track of stuff and they don't realize that they nickel and diming themselves to death. $5 here, $10 there, going out to eat, all of this stuff. And if you just sit down for 5 seconds, you don't need that big house. You don't have to have a car or even like public transportation. I know, oh my God, the goal of you for public transportation. Yes. Like sometimes you can walk. I know a lot of people that bought an electric bike and that's how they get back and forth to wherever it is that they go. And so if you start paying attention to lifestyle, and I know we got to impress the hoes and we got to make sure that we have the penthouse and the big dog and we got to keep up with the Joneses and everything like that. But the reality is that we do. We touch a lot of money and we don't realize the type of lifestyle that we live. Most people can't go 2 or 3 years without going on vacation and holding it down and then paying themselves. I know people that have paid off stuff and then they go and buy stuff. And instead of just rolling that stuff over into your stacks, your savings, and then start to parlay that and get better financial literacy so that you can make the moves that you want to move. $20,000, you'll realize if you discipline enough, you can get there faster than you think and it rolls over. We spend $20,000 like that on vacations, cars, all of that stuff. We don't need that stuff. I've seen people say, "Who could afford, to live today? I got two car notes." You don't have to have two car notes. You can buy a used car without a car note. Go get you a hoopty. The minute that 2008 hit, I voluntarily repossessed all of my cars. And I went to the auction and I bought a car and I drove it until it had like 250, 300,000 miles and the door wasn't working or whatever. And I was like, man, do I have to go get another car? And then I wound up getting like a Fusion or something like that. And I took the Fusion over from my brother and he wouldn't bought the new car. And I was like, oh, okay, you good. I got it. This is the honest to God truth. So all I'm saying is, yes, it is possible. Stop letting people doubt, sow seeds of doubt in you and ask how versus, saying I can't afford it. You're literally putting into the air and into the atmosphere what you can and can't do. Let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon link is in the description. Teach Hanley 40% off your first order, 20% off for life.